1930, in the dead of night, Kate Woltman saw something that would haunt her forever. What did she see in the darkness? Uncover the chilling truth in our unsolved mystery. The Unsolved Murder of Alice Woltman. A true story. In the early morning hours of September 14, 1930, 39-year-old Catherine Kate Woltman was jolted out of a deep sleep by a sudden loud thud overhead. "What on earth is that?" I muttered, my voice heavy with confusion and sleep. The darkness that enveloped the room seemed to thicken around me, the unknown beckoning me into a realm where fear and curiosity mingled. As I quickly ascended the stairs of her two-story South Bend, Indiana home, I was met with an unexpected and horrifying sight. The staircase unfurled before me like a path into the heart of a nightmare. Each step carried me closer to a reality I was unprepared to face. And then, there she lay, Alice, my 16-year-old daughter, crumpled at the top of the stairs, blood staining her innocence. A gasp escaped my lips, a strangled sound that echoed in the air, mingling with the muffled cries that fought to escape my chest. In a crumpled heap and covered in blood, Alice was barely moving. "No, no, no," I cried out, the words a desperate plea to turn back time, to erase this ghastly tableau. Henry, 58-year-old Henry Woltman, my husband, appeared at my side, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Our gazes locked, a silent exchange of heartbreak and disbelief that spoke volumes in the face of the unthinkable. While my husband and I attempted to render aid to their dying daughter, Alice's sister, Evelyn, phoned the family doctor, who in turn, called the police. "Evelyn, call Dr. Anderson. Hurry." My voice trembled as I barked the command, each second that passed a silent scream in my chest. The phone seemed to ring forever, each ring a reminder of the precious moments slipping away. Sadly, before help could arrive, Alice passed away in my arms. The world around us seemed to fade, leaving only Alice and I locked in an eternal moment. My fingers brushed her bloodied hair, my tears mingling with the crimson stain that marred her youth. "Hold on, Alice," I whispered, my voice quivering with a desperate hope that could not quell the looming shadow of loss. The coroner determined that Alice's throat had been cut, the wound extending from her spine to just under her chin. The coroner's words were a chilling indictment, each syllable a testament to the unspeakable horror that had visited our home. "An unusually sharp dagger," he mused, his voice laced with a solemnity that mirrored the weight of our grief. The room seemed to close in around me, the walls a witness to the terror that had unfolded within them. Evidence at the scene indicated the murder was most likely carried out by someone who knew the home's layout. Someone who knew? I whispered the words, a bitter realization that tasted like betrayal. The sanctity of our haven had been invaded by someone who had navigated our home's secrets with malicious intent. A shiver ran down my spine, the tendrils of fear and suspicion intertwining in my thoughts. Catherine. George. Their names escaped my lips like a plea as my gaze fell upon our neighbors, faces etched with a mix of concern and empathy. Catherine, an early riser, and George, tormented by the cries of a sick child, had been witnesses to the night's horrors from across the street. The pieces were slowly coming together, a puzzle of darkness and desperation. "I heard a loud scream," George said. "Yes, it was dark, but a figure of a young man fled your house," Catherine whispered out loud. "Bring the cops and show them around." However, both were not able to give any details of the suspect. Alex Peterzak, who had been dating Alice, immediately made his way to the Woltman home to speak with authorities. "I need to know," Alex's voice trembled, his eyes searching mine for answers I wished I could provide. His presence brought a glimmer of familiarity amidst the chaos, his presence a reminder of the love that had once thrived within these walls. "We last saw each other at the party," he explained, his words a lifeline in a sea of uncertainty. According to Alex, he had last seen Alice on the evening prior to her murder. His words were a thread connecting us to a time before the darkness had descended, before the world had been forever changed. As he recounted the moments they had shared, his voice a mixture of nostalgia and sorrow, I listened with a heavy heart. The echoes of their laughter seemed to resonate within the walls, a testament to a love that had been silenced too soon. After the party, he went home for the evening. The party's echoes lingered, the images of young hearts seeking solace in one another's company painting a bittersweet tapestry in my mind. The night had turned to day, innocence shattered by the blade of the unknown. As the sun began its ascent, I was left to grapple with the pieces of a puzzle that refused to be solved, a web of darkness and secrets that cast a pall over our lives. The investigation delved deeper into no man's land, and I was determined to uncover the truth. As the days passed, the detectives unraveled more details, and the story grew even more eerie. Alex, Alice's fiancé, became the focal point of their inquiry. He revealed the hidden engagement, a secret shared only between him and Alice. The diamond ring on her finger had raised suspicions among her family, but they vehemently denied any knowledge of the engagement. After validating his account through fingerprint analysis, the police pressed for more information. They inquired if anyone had a motive to harm Alice. "Well, Mr. Woltman, there are two names that come to mind," Alex began, and I leaned in, eager to hear these names. The detectives wasted no time pursuing these leads. They traced William Marek to Florida, where he had relocated just 2 weeks prior. William admitted to his romantic history with Alice and their ongoing correspondence. He even offered to provide the letters they had exchanged. However, he vehemently denied any involvement in her murder. What he did divulge was deeply unsettling. He mentioned that Alice had confided in him about Alex's intense jealousy. Barney Kulsinski, a local from South Bend, was next in line for questioning. He was not only a family friend but also a frequent customer at the Woltman grocery store. I observed closely as the detectives examined Barney's potential ties to Alice. They had reason to be suspicious. Barney had accompanied Alice to various dances recently, and he possessed intimate knowledge of the Woltman home. He had even assisted Alice's father in varnishing the upstairs wood floors several months prior. Barney, however, maintained that he had been at home in bed by 11:30 p.m. Following fingerprint analysis, the investigators released him. The family's desperation grew as their leads dwindled, and it seemed as though Alice's murder might remain a mystery. That's when Henrietta, her older sister, made a chilling revelation. I couldn't help but hold my breath as she shared that just 2 weeks before the tragedy, Alice had an ominous premonition about her own death. It sent shivers down my spine. The detectives faced mounting frustration, but they refused to give up. The case took a chilling turn when a local journalist offered a potential lead. He had interviewed 2 children who claimed to have stumbled upon a blood-soaked handkerchief near the Woltman home, just a block away. The handkerchief bore the embroidered initial G, yet its owner remained elusive. As if the story couldn't grow any darker, Alice's funeral became a somber chapter. Over 4,000 people attended, a mixture of mourners and the morbidly curious. The collective grief weighed heavily, and my heart ached for her family. But even after the funeral, darkness lingered. A haunting lead emerged when a friend of Alice's revealed a chilling encounter during the viewing at the family home. A young man had approached Alice's open casket and whispered something ominous. I couldn't shake the feeling that this enigmatic figure held the key to the mystery. In the dimly lit parlor, where tears had freely flowed, I sat with Henrietta, my beloved daughter, and we exchanged soft words of solace. Our voices, trembling with grief, held each other up in our darkest hour. "Why, Mother?" Henrietta whispered, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Why would anyone want to harm sweet Alice?" I held her trembling hand, my heart aching with the same unanswered questions. "I don't know, my dear. I don't know." The arrival of our guests cast a pall over our home. Friends and family filled the rooms, their faces etched with sorrow as they paid their last respects to Alice. Our home, once a place of laughter and joy, had been transformed into a sanctuary of mourning. Amid the hushed murmurs and stifled sobs, I noticed a figure standing by Alice's casket, a somber silhouette in the dim light. It was Henry Sawinski, a convicted statutory rapist and former boyfriend of Henrietta, his presence casting an eerie shadow over our grief. As Henrietta and I approached, the air grew heavy with unspoken words. Henry's gaze met mine, and for a fleeting moment, our eyes locked in a silent exchange of pain and suspicion. I couldn't help but confront the man, my voice trembling as I uttered, "Henry, why are you here? What do you want?" He looked down at Alice's lifeless form, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I loved her, Kate. I loved her too." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken truths and unanswered questions. In that moment, Our lives were bound together by a shared grief, and yet, the shroud of suspicion clung to Henry like a second skin. As the investigation unfolded, Henry was arrested by police at a Chicago boarding house. Henry admitted he had been in South Bend on the evening of Alice's murder. "Why did you leave, Henry?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why did you leave South Bend after Alice's funeral?" He glanced at me, his eyes haunted by the memories of that fateful day. "I needed to get away from here, Kate. The pain was too much to bear." He also denied whispering anything during Alice's wake. "I had planned to leave South Bend to start work in Chicago at a grocery store. Anything wrong with that?" Detectives diligently interviewed more than 20 individuals who could have had a connection to the case, including a man who supposedly threatened Alice at her family's grocery store, 2 men who were seen arguing near the scene of the crime, and several others who were rumored to also have feelings for Alice. Among them were those whose presence left us uneasy, their motives shrouded in uncertainty. As detectives cast their net wide, even individuals rumored to have harbored affection for Alice were not spared from questioning. The grim realization that her killer might be someone she had known, someone who had hidden their malevolent intentions, hung over us like a dark cloud. Despite the tireless efforts of the authorities, fingerprint comparisons yielded no matches to the prints found at the scene. It was as though the perpetrator had left no trace, slipping away like a phantom into the night. Yet, our grief-stricken family could not find solace. I had a call from the police. I asked, "What was it?" We got a new lead. A man named Charles Verplatzi, who owned a snack bar, was a friend of Alice, had been arrested with possession for illegal drugs. This investigation later resulted in no headway. 1 month after the tragedy, we made the agonizing decision to leave our North Jackson Street home. The memories that once filled those walls had turned into painful reminders, and the fear for our safety weighed heavily on our hearts. In the midst of our anguish, an unsettling incident occurred just after Alice's funeral, confirming our worst fears. Under the cover of darkness, an intruder had attempted to breach the sanctuary of our home, their motives unknown but their presence a chilling reminder of the darkness that had touched our lives. As time passed, the headlines that had once blared Alice's name began to fade, like a distant echo. In 1931, only 2 articles mentioned Alice. The first came in April, when a heartless thief desecrated her resting place, stealing a cherished photo from her gravestone at St. Joseph's Cemetery. Mrs. Winka, the caretaker's wife, made the horrifying discovery, leaving us to grapple with fresh wounds. 1 month later, South Bend's chief of police, Samuel Lennon, took his own life. The weight of unsolved murders, including Alice's, had taken its toll on him, leaving us with lingering questions and shattered hopes. In the 1970s, Henry and Catherine Woltman passed away. Afterward, Alice's siblings also passed away one by one, leaving behind only the memory of a tragic night. Alice's unsolved murder remained a haunting mystery, leaving it as one of the questionable cases of history.